Hey, everybody, it's Christian Pedersen, joined by Raymond Brown, back for another week of talking about San Diego high school football. We are officially past the midway point now, and Raymond is here joining us on behalf of his page, San Diego High School Football, or San Diego Football. They cover all the levels, high school, college, pro. We are here to talk with him about his high school stuff. He's always got some great galleries on Instagram, got some great videos on X. He spreads out the love. Make sure you check out everything he's doing. Raymond, we talked last week about remaining undefeated teams, and some of them started to fall. I'm curious what, if any, major takeaways you had from the last week of football, because I thought that the La Jolla Country Day win over Army Navy was pretty that was pretty notable. There was a couple of other somewhat lopsided scores. Your thoughts, if any, on the last week of high school football before we get to our game previews?
Yeah, we had two undefeated teams go down. Unfortunately, I think actually we had three. Um, we had Kearney go down. We had San Diego Jewish Academy go down, and we had Army Navy go down to a great La Jolla Country Day team led by Jaden Mangini. He had a great game. I think he had over 4 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. So great performance by him. Yeah, we only got five undefeated teams left, and I think it might go down to four pretty soon.
Oh, are you teasing one of the games coming up this week, or are you saying just in general you can see one of them losing?
Just in general, we still got Helix and Granite Hills facing off. So I don't think either team loses until that game.
Fair enough.
So that
So
should be one to look at.
narrowing down little bit by little bit. All right, let's talk about some of the games then coming up this week. Not a huge slate on Thursday, but one of the undefeated teams that you mentioned, Helix, they will take on West Hills. And I feel like every year Helix gets everybody's best. So this West Hills team at 4-1, they are pretty talented. What kind of a challenge can they give Helix here?
They would have to get that run game going. I like the way Colin Dale's running the ball. They got another kid who's running for over 100 yards, but it's going to be a big game. West Hills is riding some heavy momentum since losing to Patrick Henry. I mean, they beat their rival El Capitan. So they're gonna need to do a lot. They're gonna have to play a nearly perfect game. I don't see Helix dropping this game. But they're gonna put up a fight. That's what I know West Hills to do this year. They're gonna put up a fight.
Let's move on then to the main attraction Friday night. What are you looking at? Because there's a couple of huge games, and I know the few that I want to talk about, but are there any that right off the bat just jump out to you as maybe your games of the week?
Definitely Carlsbad versus Mission Hills. Carlsbad's rolling right now, as we all know. Mission Hills, they've been on the up since losing to Granite Hills in the first week. That's going to be a tough game. It was very close last year. It may be close this year. Of course, Carlsbad's the heavy favorite, but I think Mission Hill's going to put up a much better fight than we've seen from them this season.
Anything else on Friday? Because I'm looking at that Poway LCC game also being a pretty heavyweight fight with some huge implications potentially, even maybe all the way up to open division. That one.
Lincoln and Madison is going to be interesting. Madison, they need a bounce back win bad. They looked bad against Granite Hills. Well, I won't say they looked bad. Granite Hills looked amazing, but getting shut out like that, it's not good heading into a game against Lincoln, which those two have become great rivals. They've played some pretty close, intense games. Um, yeah, I see Lincoln rolling, but that's one Madison needs bad if they want to. I think they're out of the open division. They're looking for a high spot in that Division 1 playoffs. So that's going to be interesting. And yeah, Poway LCC, La Costa Canyon is rolling. I love Quinn Rott. He's having a great season at quarterback. Poway needs a win if they're going to solidify their Avocado League status. They need to beat some Avocado League teams, and if they can get a win over La Costa Canyon, that'll do great heading towards for their momentum heading towards the rest of the league.
Can I hit you with maybe two more games, Raymond? You got
Yes,
time?
sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned Kearney. Their perfect season comes to an end, but that does not mean that they are not a good team. They're going to be taking on
Right.
Hoover. And that to me feels like that could be a really, really interesting game because Hoover with 4 wins or Kearney with 5, like one of those two teams becomes a team that you kind of put some respect on in terms of they could become championship favorites. Your thoughts?
Yeah, a tough loss for Kearney. They were rolling undefeated. Then they ran into a great Escondido Charter team. They ran into Nick Patterson, who's having a phenomenal season, leading the section in rushing and points and all of that. Um, Hoover, I love their offense, and that offense could explode. Their loss to San Ysidro got me feeling a little different about this one, but it should be a great game, man. They got two quarterbacks who can put up some points. They got a great skill players around them. I don't know. I got Kearney in this one though.
Final game I want to ask about is Rancho Bernardo and Del Norte, pair of teams that I think there was a lot of question to first-year head coaches. Not that we didn't know there was talent or ability to win there, but you go in with an unknown sometimes because it's just an unknown. You don't know what you're going to get. And we've seen really good, like, I think Del Norte has a strong case of being a top 10 team. I think Rancho Bernardo, maybe not a top 10 team, but probably by the time we get to the playoffs, Rancho Bernardo is going to get a home game. And I think that's saying something in and of itself. So your thoughts on RB and Del Norte squaring off this week?
I like the way Del Norte's been playing this year. Um, they have won three straight since losing to La Costa Canyon, which La Costa is a great team, like I mentioned before. Um, Big game for them, man. I got Del Norte winning this one. I like Rancho Bernardo too. They got some great players on their team, but I think Del Norte is just a little bit better.
Thank you, Raymond. A reminder, you can check out everything he does at San Diego Football Network on all the social medias. Absolutely crushing the coverage every weekend. Before we
Uh,
let you go, I want to ask you who at this point in the season, like we're 51%. We're on the second half, if you will. So through the first half of the season, who's your biggest surprise so far this year?
Biggest surprise. It's tough. I'm really not surprised right now. Well, I'll say Granite Hills. I thought they were gonna fall off just a little bit. They lost a lot of great players. They lost two quarterbacks. They lost their running back, but they've been able to replace them amazingly. They got a freshman out there who's slinging the rock pretty good. They got two running backs who are probably the best duo in the county right now. So I like that Granite Hills is still rolling. I expect a little bit of a drop off. I expect them to be good, but not as good as I'm seeing right now.
I will nominate as my pleasant surprise of the year is Claremont with 3 wins
Oh,
already this season is looking definitely as if they are trending in the better direction, but they're set up that if you look at the rest of that score, like I don't think a 5-5 Claremont could be out of the question right now. And to me, that's pleasantly surprising. So no insult meant there when you ask what's a surprise, but sometimes football does football things and you get crazy results and you wind up going, hey, like for better or for worse, this is where we're at. So it catches us off guard, even with the best of preparation. Raymond, thank you very much for checking in with us. Anything else? What do you got coming up this week? Another top 23 in 23. What else is people can? What else?
Yes, top 23 and 23 is dropping tomorrow. Top 23 players in the county. So if you got those stats, send them to me. I got a quick question for you though.
New with it.
I seen your post going in on the media rankings. What was your exact beef with those?
There's no beef. If you listen, I just think that it feels like there are 8 to 10 teams that we are stuck in the same permutation of them always in the top 10, and we won't vote in a country day to be the number 8 team in the county because we hit it with the consistent heavy dose of strength of schedule in reality. So my question was like, should this be voted on differently? Should there be big school, small school rankings? Should there be public school, private school ranking? Because it feels like we're starting to rinse and repeat that the same schools every single year get this immediate just voucher for.
Oh, you think they're getting votes based on what school they are? Like
Yeah,
based on their like Cathedral or Helix?
and I'm not saying that it's always Cathedral. I'm saying that just somehow Cathedral is very rarely outside of the top 10 at any point, ever, no matter how poor their record is, because you're absolutely correct. They do play the best teams. and or some of the, like, they play in that upper tier. They don't play the same strength of schedule, anything close to what I don't know how to take out, I don't know how to do this without taking out somebody, but they don't play something that's in the negatives. They don't play something that's in like Cathedral does not schedule games against schools in Division 5 AA just for the sake of being able to put up 100 on them. Like, they don't. They schedule tough, and so they take losses. But to me, the concept of a top 10 in the media ranking sense, since we have no actual, like, we don't have to do the open division playoff rankings. It's not us. We don't have to be responsible for getting the math right. The voting poll is supposed to be like largely an opinion poll. And I think if the overarching opinion is we're stuck at 10 to 12 teams can only ever swap spots in these top 10, and we're going to gatekeep the shit out of everybody else outside of it and give them the courtesy of like, oh, we'll rank them 14th. Even though they're 5-0, just kind of bugs me. And I'm like, how do we split this up into Texas has I think it's 1,000 or 750, somewhere in that range of like, if it's over that, you're in one category of their media poll. If it's under that, you're in a different category of their media poll. And they do 2 top 10. So I think that's where I was just kind of like, and I know that's a long rant, but I think I was just kind of like, hey, it seems a little ridiculous to me that either I'm missing something entirely and just am not conceiving of what a top 10 is really supposed to be, or maybe that we're a little stuck in terms of the mentality on this, and it's not necessarily, I don't think, producing a entertaining reflection of the county. Because yes, I do get it that Carlsbad and Lincoln are probably gonna beat Central, or I mentioned Country Day specifically in the video. I wasn't like trying to take out Jade managing. Like, I think that Coach Hales would probably say that there's a reason why they don't try to schedule Lincoln as a preseason game currently. It's just because they recognize it. But Country Day, Brawley, Mount Miguel for the first couple of weeks should have had more opportunities to be recognized or whatever. I don't know. It just, that
One
was,
thing I want to say,
yeah.
I don't particularly agree with the rankings neither, but what people got to remember, because I get hit up by coaches and people all the time about these rankings. I'm just one vote out of 30. You're just one vote out of 30. So like, there's some people out there, they're gonna vote the way they want to vote, and it's gonna interfere with the total rankings when they get calculated. But I just want people to know I'm just one vote. Like, however the rankings turn out has nothing to do with me, and there's nothing I could do about it. I have my opinion, I turn it in, and that's the way it goes. And I don't always agree with it, and I don't always like it, but I have to respect it.
And there's tiers to it. There are chunks of it where there's the Union Tribune media poll, but then there's also KUSI does their own. You have done your own throughout the years. Dago football does his own. We used to do our own. And then there's the people who are just the commentators that are doing, like, so there's a whole ecosystem to it. And you're absolutely right that especially in this one poll, you are not but 3 to 4% of the total vote. And
Exactly.
I don't think that I was trying to intentionally take out any fellow voters, but if you are bringing up the fact and you're making it admissible in court that, hey, I'm only one of the voters, I think you can sort of be like, hey, let's look at who are the voters. We don't have the most robust, centralized footage depository. Huddle only gives you what teams allow you to see and whatnot. And I get that people can't sit there and do a college game day vibe of like, I'm going to soak in 6 of the top 10 games this week. And you got to go see them in person. And some people don't see everybody. Yeah. So I wasn't trying to fine tune it or nitpick at it or take shots or anything. It was just a general question out loud of kind of like, hey, this seems to be getting repetitive. And like, here's what you, the public, think.
Honestly, I feel the same way about the college polls. It seems like it's always the same teams in there no matter what. And like all the small schools that are like 8-0, they get stuck at the back. So I agree with what you're saying.
with the
But
caveat that college, to me, doing the top 25 is always able to give like 18 to 25 out to schools who it's a big deal to them, but doesn't really impact top, actual money bowl and playoff type rankings and seeding. So, maybe
my pet peeve is seeing a team that somebody beat ranked above them. Like team A beats team B, but team B is ranked higher. That's my only pet peeve as far as the rankings go. So I try to keep the winners above the losers, for lack of a better term.
yes, and I will also say that I approach it from I think maybe different view than what is probably the majority held view of, I think that high school football and or all high school sports should always be kept in the context of like, this is after school life enrichment time, and this is not a job, and this is not the end of the world. And I think a lot of people are like caught up in the raw of like, our boys are going D1, are this or that, are, like we're the best, like we're the big, and forget that that's not the only point of this flex. Some of this is supposed to be like, hey, look, we're the first time that Claremont has been if Claremont wins out the season and goes 7-3, like maybe they should get into the 10 seed in the whatever the secondary bracket is or something like that. I don't know. It just feels like there are different, and you can totally validate that whole team's high school experience by doing that, of just being like, hey, you're not up here, you're not in the BS, you're down here in the FCS, but within that subcategory, we would like to recognize you as being excellent and great. And so that's why I think I was kind of just like, here's what people think. And a lot of people heard it a lot of different ways. And I think a lot of people heard it. To me, the conversation became a lot about, well, how does it affect the playoff rankings? And to me, that again is the fundamental start of my mania, is when people go like hard on this, and they're, you're wrong, but you're like, this doesn't do anything to the playoff rankings. The playoff
The computers get it wrong sometimes too.
Well,
Like
and the
I was,
is its whole other own thing. Like this media poll
yeah,
has nothing to do with that. So just chill on.
nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was looking at D3, and right now they got Grossmont above Paul Alberta Valley, even though Paul Alberta Valley beat Grossmont, and like they got Paul Alberta not making the playoffs if it was this end today, and they got Grossmont barely hanging on with an 11 seed, which I think they deserve more than that. But I mean, we're not always going to agree on this, either computer or human. So I agree with what you're saying, but I just wanted people to understand that like not one person is responsible for it. It's a collective of 30 different people, and like when you get 30 different people in a room, everybody ain't gonna agree on stuff.
Yeah, that's where I was trying to see where the opinion of the people lays in all this. But yeah, so that is my short answer. Would you like the long answer?
Yeah, we go another 2 hours.
No, but I honestly, I think that to kind of just say the final thought on all of that is, to me also, I see it happen throughout the year of, once we get back into basketball voting, same bracket. Once we get back into baseball voting, it sort of breaks out a little bit because you can do they got a good pitcher down here, and when their ace is throwing, and I like that in baseball. So I see that it's possible. It's just not everywhere yet, but like the formula can be figured out how to properly respect all sizes and shapes of schools and get
So should we do a top 25 like college? We think that would help, or would it make matters worse?
The question then though is still, what's going to be the mentality? Because if the top 25 just means that we're going to give D1 and open the top 12 seeds, D2 and 3 the top 13 through 20, and D4 and 5. Yeah, I'm down for a top 25 if we can formulate it correctly and get the voters to really vote on it accurately. But I think my question was more like, how can we maybe untangle some of these teams into different categories and do it in a way that then allows for voters to think about them in completely separate like realms of, okay, if you're up here on the bigger, more competitive side, you can then not get away with, but you can then be 1-5 and get complete validation for, oh, you're playing X, Y, and Z, who are, number 1 in Arizona, number 3 in Nevada, number 2 in Utah. Great. You lost to teams that are infinitely better than everybody else here in San Diego. And you can get credit for that. Or you can then be in that other, and maybe it's like a split, like it's at 750 kid enrollment or something like that. And if you're down at, if you're down at 200 something kids, but you're going 7-3 on the end of the season, like you should be the top 10 team in that. I don't know.
Cathedral's the best 1-5 team we probably ever seen. Like, let's be honest, they've lost to some pretty like good teams.
I'm not going to know that though until the playoffs, and if they lose in the first round of the playoffs, and everybody spent the whole season, and this is not me taking out Cathedral, this is just me playing devil's advocate. But if Cathedral goes, and assuming that like I'm going to say they lose to Lincoln, beat Madison, say they beat Saints, and end up 3-7. And we've all talked about all season long strength of schedule. They're the best sub 500 team we've ever seen, yada, yada, yada. But then they go out and they lose in the first round of the playoffs to El Camino. Like,
which could happen because El Camino's that good.
but then what are we talking about? Were they really that good? If they entered the season 3-8 and they didn't win in the playoffs, and they didn't all of the strength of schedule didn't actually pay off. And that's part of the pain in the ass of all this, is you don't know until the season is over with football. But football also is the smallest of the sample sizes. But to me, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting kind of tired of the strength of schedule argument because of football.
I mean, but you got to do it because there's nearly 100 teams and not everybody play each other, so you have to take that into account. Like,
I'm not saying don't take
most like we were saying.
I'm saying kind of what you said though. Their teams shouldn't be above teams that they lost to. Teams shouldn't be.
I don't agree with that.
I'm fine doing strength of schedule when it comes down to the math, but on the opinion side,
because we know some of these teams that are 4-1 and 5-0, if they had Cathedral schedule, they'd probably be 1-4 or maybe worse. So, yeah, it's tough. It's a double-edged sword, man. But I just want to get your take on it. I didn't want to get into a debate because I agree with what you said, but I just wanted to. I was interested in that video you made. You brought up some good points. So I just wanted to get your take on it.
I appreciate it, man. And no, it's a good debate to have because there's always gonna be a team. There's always gonna be something.
My inbox get flooded with questions, man. Yeah, like, bro, I'm just wonderful.
Yeah, and when we went through a couple of years with like Bishops and Tyler Buck, I think also Tyler Buckner was a lot in my mind because of Bishops. Like Bishops, they shouldn't be a D2 team. The fact that those guys can win at the D2 level the way that they do is, I have long said, testament to the fact that the Bishops coaching staff probably pound for pound the best at getting the most out of what they have and translating it into actual, like, really quality football. Buckner, like, was great, but perpetually Bishops themselves was saying we shouldn't be higher than like 8th, because realistically, if we played that whole schedule that the number 1 teams play, we would be destroyed physically and we wouldn't be able to compete by the end of the season. But we saw then also in a playoff or in a championship game, Bishops go head to head with one of those big bloods. And it was one of the most epic singular shootouts we've ever seen in the history of championship games. Yeah. So that's why I'm kind of like, Bishops that season realistically should have been like 2 or 3 in the rankings because they were world enders with that squad. So, and sometimes there are just those small schools that if you do it on the 1 week snapshot of really who is just the best, everyone's healthy in a vacuum. But then again, that's not football. And that's, my brain just was spinning on it a lot. So I figured let's get some of it out, because therapy sometimes is just talking into the camera. Yeah,
Thank you
man.
for having me, man. I appreciate you.
Let's going forward. If you got an idea, let's float it out there. Like figure out if you got an update. Let's figure out the next iteration of this. Start our revolution. Eventually,
All right.
John's going to retire, and someone's going to have to take over. So
Mm.
we'll be there waiting in the wings with our new plan. How about that?
All right.
Yeah,
Yes,
man.
sir.
Alrighty, that was Raymond Brown. Thank you very much for checking in. And you can check out everything that he does at San Diego Football Network. All of like literally the levels of football played in San Diego are covered there in great detail. Check out the top 23 and 23. We'll talk to you guys soon.